Oh, is that it? Yoni,
there you are.
Do an intro? All right.
Hey, I'm ready to run in with it. Good evening, everyone. It is Sunday, March 5th, 5 p.m. in the great state of California. Welcome to the call with our beloved Shawn, formerly known as the Bad Robot. We're so glad you could be with us tonight. It's been quite a long time since we've been together.
Yeah, it has. It's been a really long time since we've done a call. Yeah. So, all right, I'll kick it off with the usual stuff up front, disclaimer, whatever you want to call it, and then do a real quick kind of summary. Let me do the disclaimer. Okay. All right, so this is a public call. All right, this call is being recorded. It will be available for replay to anybody who missed it, which usually ends up being quite a few. And I'm happy to be here and kind of hopefully provide some insight into what's going on with this infamous GCR and all these types of things. It's a public call, so everything that I'm going to say is pretty much on the public record. If you want to find any information or things that I mention and talk about when we do the Q&A and all of that, you can find it out there. And so I will be revealing or discussing no confidential information. There is quite a bit in this that is confidential, and it has to be that way, whether one agrees with it or not, because it is a big thing. I am not a professional financial advisor. I am not a tax attorney, nor should I be construed as such. Anything I say is my opinion based on the research and information and involvement with the GCR that I have. And but you should take no financial or personal decisions based on anything that I say without doing your own research. If you choose to stay on this call, you are agreeing to those terms and recognize those things. And I'm not a professional, all right? So if you want to get into talking about things, we can do that, but it's my opinion, and they should be considered as such. Okay, that's that. So I want to just say welcome everyone to this call. I'm happy to be here to do this. It's been a long time since I've done any kind of a public address. Hello, all my friends at S3G. Howdy. Big California welcome. I do live in California now, and it's sunny, but it's very wet at the same time, right? And everyone knows why. This call is about all of you guys. It will be predominantly questions and answers. I'll do a short little kind of overview, but really this is all about you guys. And I will do my best to answer your questions to the best of my ability and to the farthest extent that I can without going into confidential things. If you do have something that I can't say, I'll just tell you I can't say it. Right? But I'll do my best to kind of fill in the blanks based on what I know and that type of thing. So, all right, let's get into it. All right.
All righty. Let me turn on Q&A.
All right, so you can rack up the queue, and in the meantime, I'll do a quick couple minutes here. So probably the biggest question on everyone's mind is when, or how, and also things related to probably all the continuous and endless information that gets published out in our land on the internet and in various chat rooms and sites and things like that, and probably another round of questions is on why are so many things being said, but yet nothing happens. All right, so I'll leave those questions up to you. My only interest here is to inform you the best that I can, and the best way to start right here at the beginning, because it's been quite a while, is in order for you to understand why this is taking the period of time that it's taking, and also answering some of the questions as to why there's so much information out there, or many of you might say disinformation or whatnot. I'm not here to judge that. I'm just here to relay what I know to the best of my ability. But it's important to understand the context of what's going on, and that will give you a lot of clues and a good foundation for understanding why things are happening the way they're happening, and reports come out the way they do, and that type of thing. And the best way to do that is to start with the source. You have to start with the source of where this whole GCR is coming from and why. And the key part of that is, over a long period of time, many hundreds and hundreds of years, actually it goes back thousands, that's a whole other call in and of itself. This is about funds, or more accurately, gold, that has been around for a long, long time. Most of the gold, probably better than 90% of it or more, is not on any public record. So if you would Google how much gold is there in the world, what you're going to get is a statistic and a chart of all the gold that's been mined, dug up and refined over some period of time, and then you'll get estimates of how much gold is in the ground and yet to be brought up and refined and that type of thing. But what you will not get, unless you dig deep for the information, is what's called the black gold. And the black gold is gold that goes back through antiquity, going all the way back to King Solomon's mine, the treasures of Alexandria, which are basically the booty that was robbed, raped, and pillaged from Eurasia by Alexander the Great. Then you come a little bit closer in history to where we are, which is all the gold that was plundered out of South America with the Incas, the Mayans, the Aztecs, that type of thing. And most of that gold is not on public record. It has certainly changed hands all over the place, but the bottom line is there is a tremendous amount of gold, and over the last many, many hundreds of years, this gold has been compiled and slowly brought in by the various ruling families and dynasties over history in China, in Asia, in Europe, the European royals, the Chinese dynasties, and that type of thing. Bloodlines, that's really what they're called. And over time, all of these folks were getting together and decided that, given the fact that these assets that were originally a part of humanity have been surreptitiously pillaged and collected for all kinds of bad reasons over the past several, 1,000 years, that type of thing. And they decided we should all get this and bring it all together and give it back to humanity, because that's where it belongs, for many reasons, not just for ethical and moral reasons, but also for economic reasons. So all of that has been collected. It's absolutely there, and there's been waiting for the proper time for it to be utilized for the benefit of humanity and for the world in general, but getting out to humanity in a way where it doesn't get locked up with governments and various factions and families and that type of thing. But like I said, this is a whole other story, and I'm not here to give you a whole history lesson. But the gold is there. And the way it's been tried to be put out for several times over recent decades, and it's failed. The most largest well-known one is John F. Kennedy, but then it was also attempted in 1980 as well with the signing of a global treaty amongst all the so-called historical ruling class families and bloodlines and that type of thing. But all of this gold is collected in what are called collateral accounts, world global settlement accounts. You can call it a global debt facility. There are many names for it. But the bottom line is these are massive amounts of gold, and they're formulated into or managed by, in the modern day here, under legal trusts, right? So these trusts are set up. You've heard various names, Heritage, St. Germain, these types of things. And the key purposes, and these trusts have trustees, and under the mandate of the formation of the trust is that these assets need to be pumped back out into the world, to humanity and into the economy, where they serve the greatest good for everyone on the planet without distinction or prejudice amongst any race, creed, color, or whatever. And we are at that time now, and it's been a long time coming, but as you can imagine, in today's global interconnected world and political and geopolitical landscape, it's not an easy task, all right? So that is coming back out, and that is what we loosely call the global currency reset, because the best way to utilize these gold stores is to use it as collateral to back funded accounts. All right, we all know what collateral is. Collateral is something you put up as a physical asset that backs a transaction, and if the transaction fails at some point, that collateral is utilized, transferred back if you say you default on your commitment under an agreement. It's the same thing here. All of this gold put up by the historical trusts, which are managed by various bloodlines and families, or more accurate, that is under the trusteeship of various families, and there is a hierarchy. Eventually there is one key area of this or person that has certain responsibilities, and then there's a whole, you can call it a committee underneath that, that kind of is like a regulatory body or responsible for different areas and different geographical locations. And a lot of times these are called the elders or the royals or whatever. Believe it or not, it's actually true. All right. So, and of course, like all businesses and families and wherever people are involved, they get into arguments and they disagree and they don't agree on this way or that way. We should do it this way. We should do it that way. And there's been a lot of that going on related to the GCR. Some for efficient reasons and good reasons, others for not so good reasons, right? So, but the bottom line is the gold is being used as collateral. We live in a digital world, so as we all know, most of our financial transactions are handled just by swiping a card or looking at an account, but it's really just a bunch of numbers sitting in a computer somewhere. The vast amount of currency used in everyday finance and economic issues is really just digital numbers transferring from one computer system to another, one server to another, and so forth. So the gold will be used to collateralize, or is being used to collateralize a new form of currency, or let's say a return to an old form of currency, which is a asset-backed currency system. And that will go out, and that's related to what we all know is called the USN, the U.S. note, or the U.S. Treasury note, and it is also being used similarly in countries like Russia and China and many, many others, slowly but surely coming on board, where certain amounts or portions of the historical gold assets are collateralizing the currencies of these countries. So basically means you've got an asset-backed currency, and going into what the benefits of an asset-backed currency system versus a fiat system, that's a whole other topic and call as well. So now, the gold is there. You physically have it with different countries and various places, and they're going to use it to collateralize or back their currency, their digital currencies, and eventually it will work its way out into paper representations. The mysterious USN note that's been much talked about and much rumored to have already been released all over the place. It's rainbow currency, whatever you want to call it, but that's not happening right now, and it won't for the foreseeable future. But the digital money is the first wave of the conversion to the new system under what we call the GCR. Now, technically and administratively or tactically how that works is that the gold is used as collateral with a sovereign nation. The sovereign nation creates a currency within their computer systems, their banking and regulatory agencies, to recognize the value per unit of that currency against a set unit of gold. All right, the currencies will not be 100% gold-backed. You don't need to do that to establish or achieve the goals of the GCR. For instance, the U.S. dollar will most likely be collateralized and backed at about 20% in the beginning here, and it may go up from there or may stay there. But the key point is that a certain percentage of the currency has to be backed and collateralized by this gold. Now, when it comes to our currency exchanges or the exchange phase of this, in essence, the gold is there. Sovereign nation recognizes it, does all its legal things to recognize the collateral that's backing it, and at that point, these digital, we'll just talk in the U.S. terms here, digital dollars are in effect transferred from the origin or the source of the collateral backing, or created. They're really not transferred. It's really just created as a function of the gold collateralization, right? And that shows up in this case in the United States, and that part is done. Okay, so yep, the gold-backed portion of the U.S. dollar is alive and well. It is far from being public, but it's there. But the initial wave of these gold-backed dollars will be realized in physical terms or practical terms throughout the exchange process. That's actually what kicks it off and brings it into the banking system, is basically an exchange or a swap or a trade for an asset like the Iraqi dinar or the Zimbabwe dollar or the Vietnamese dong or Super Pacelli bonds and various other types of historical bonds. The exchange of those instruments, and that is exactly what they're called, these financial instruments, that exchange initiates and brings in an asset-backed currency, unit of currency. All right, so you can imagine there's a lot involved in getting that done. All right, and the evidence and proof of that is, look how long we've all been waiting for this to happen. All right, so we're pretty much through those phases. The final thing really that's left is all the logistics, all the setup, all the computer systems, the collateralization, which actually just happened late last week. the final collateralization phase for here in the U.S. That will allow the tactical or the practical exchange process to begin seems to be in place. All right. Does that mean tomorrow morning when banks open, things are going to happen? Maybe, maybe not. All right. Nobody knows the actual schedule or what still remains to be done in this process from a very logistical and practical point of view. Like banks have to do this, and the U.S. Treasury has to do that, and the Federal Reserve has to do this, and the IMF has to do that, and then there's treaties and all of these other things that the countries have signed, and they have to be honored, and there's verification, a lot of paperwork, and yes, of course, the tax authorities of the world are involved as well. So right here in the USA, the IRS is deeply involved, and they are very well aware of what's going on, and that's part of the process. All right, so most of that has been done. We just don't know if we're at that last step or if there's one or two more things that have to be done in order to get to the part that we all want to happen, which is the beginning of the multiple phase process of the exchanges of the currencies that we hold. Okay, so that's your overview and where we pretty much are now. But the other understanding in wondering why things are said to be happening yesterday, today, tomorrow, 6 o'clock tonight, or this coming Tuesday, it's always a Tuesday, by the way, that it's all going to start, and yet here we are again, and the information is full of things that are going to start this week. That could be the case. I hope it's the case, and so do we all, actually. And however, when you wonder why certain information that is published or posted out on the internet or in various chat rooms or groups or whatever is, like, for instance, a week and a half ago, right, we're going to be done. It starts on Friday. It starts on Saturday. And, here we are a week later, and nothing has happened in terms of the exchanges. And the only way to really get an understanding or to grasp an overview and kind of assuage the frustration that comes with being told it's going to happen tomorrow and then it never does. I call it Groundhog Day. It's a term that a good friend of mine and myself use. It's like, here we are in Groundhog Day. We wake up every day, and no matter what we do, we can't change the situation. But the bottom line is that to understand why certain information comes out that ends up not being accurate or too soon or too speculative and it doesn't happen, is you have to rise above the United States and understand how the GCR is rolling out globally. And the key point is to recognize that the United States is just a level within the bigger picture. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is that many of us have sources and contacts and whatnot at the U.S. Treasury or Wells Fargo Bank or the IMF or, the U.S. government, the IRS. It goes on and on and on, and there's no shortage of people within those agencies and organizations that will tell you every day it's going to happen tomorrow. And you might wonder, well, why the heck don't they know? All right, why are they always wrong? Well, the answer to that is because they only know what they know, but there's a layer above that, all right, that is really controlling this rollout. And there are also various families or royals or bloodlines that want things to happen a certain way. And don't just think of a bloodline as, like the kings of old or monarchies or Chinese or Asian dynasties. And and that type of thing. Think of them as families that actually run banks, and think of them as families that are actually in government, and think of them as family members that are actually at places like the IMF and the Treasury and whatnot. But what you need to understand, or should understand, is they only know what they know. They're not in charge. All right? So many of us that have contacts at these various agencies and all that, we have credible sources. They really are the people they say they are. It's not like it's a CIA agent or black hat agent that's pretending to be a person at the IMF or a person in the Senate or a person at the Federal Reserve or a person at the Treasury. They really are people that are there, all right? But they just don't know the big picture. And what they get instructions or information that says, we're going to go tomorrow. And, of course, that stuff leaks out, all right? So as most of you know from my past calls and things like that, I really don't see this as a black and white issue. I don't see it as a good versus evil or bad guy, good guy. There is definitely some of that, all right? But the bottom line is, in the big picture, the U.S. government or the U.S. banking system, or the Western banking system as I call it, really just comes down to people that are in the bloodlines or the royals or whatever historically that are, descendants are here today that want to do certain things a certain way related to the GCR, and they squabble and they, say, hey, we're going to do it this way whether you agree or not, and then they go to launch the program, and guess what? It doesn't launch. A favorite analogy of mine is you decorate a Christmas tree and you spend a lot of time putting all these lights on the tree and everything, and now comes the moment you got everything connected, all the lights are on and everything, and the big moment comes, you're going to plug it in and it's going to light up and it's going to be beautiful and all that. Well, you plug it in and you realize there's no electricity. The electricity is dead in the plug. So no matter what you do, you can plug it in 100 times and it's still not going to light up. The same thing with, call it the Western side of the GCR, more particularly the Rothschild side of the GCR. And the Rothschilds, whether you love them or hate them, well, I actually don't know anyone that likes them, but the Rothschilds are guys that have decorated the tree, and the analogy of the lights on the tree and the decorations is setting up the entire 800 number exchange center infrastructure all over the United States and in other places where they are influential in other countries. And they have that whole program, and it's there and it's real and all of that. But like plugging in the Christmas tree, they got it all set. And when they go to plug it in and turn it on, which is the usual reports about 800 numbers coming out tonight or tomorrow, they plug it in and they find out there's no electricity. And in this case, it means there's no funds. They're blocked from accessing the gold collateralized funds. Okay, and getting into all the reasons why and all of that, that's a whole other conference call in and of itself. But that's pretty much the landscape, all right? And if you understand that, the key thing I want you to understand is the information that you hear that a lot of people will call disinformation, or they have fake sources or whatever, most of the time they're real sources. And they're real people, and they really are at where they say they are, and they are who they say they are. But they're only getting information because as large as the U.S. and the Western banking system is and the government and all of that, we're really just a piece of this, all right? So that, I hope, kind of gives an overview of how the structure and the process and what's going on in terms of definitive or protocols or processes. The other side of this is the humanitarian aspect, because the whole reason this is happening is for the benefit of the planet and humanity. The gold and the asset accounts are considered I wouldn't say the owners, but the trusts that have been set up with all the historical gold and now the collateral accounts and the gold-backed funds that are going to be used to purchase our dinar and zim and BND and that type of thing. Those are now I lost my train of thought. Okay. Those are destined for humanity. I picked it back up. There we go. And they need to get out for the benefit of humanity. They're not going out to be stuck in bank accounts earning interest or to be used as financial investment funds. And what I mean by financial investments is you put a bunch of money and you park it somewhere and you collect interest, or you park it into an investment fund and you buy stocks and you buy ETFs and you invest in bonds or whatever. That is not what this money is for. Never has been, never will be. This money must get out into the economy. And for those of you that are on the ball, you are seeing where the economic development and humanitarian projects that are often mentioned in dinar land are specifically with. As a matter of fact, the economic development and humanitarian projects are the entire reason why this whole thing is happening. That is the mechanism or the process for getting these funds out into the economy. For instance, you've heard a lot of rumors and talk and stories and discussions regarding there's so much of the proceeds, if you go for a certain rate, has to be dedicated to humanitarian funds. That's true in certain areas of this, in certain channels or avenues. And then for other rates, there's really no project commitments or anything like that, the rates are lower, right? So that's equitable. That's fair, given the fact that the primary reason for these exchanges at our level is to put that money out into the hands of people that are then going to begin to execute projects both large and small. And there's really no limit to the size, or they can't be too small and they can't be too big. When I say by too big, I can tell you that I personally know of projects that are going to be executed that are way up in the trillions of dollars, all right, for a single project. All right, and then there's projects that only require a couple million, but there's a lot of people doing a lot of those couple $1 million projects, and it still adds up. So if you think about it, how do you get these funds out and then make sure that the funds end up achieving the purpose and the goal of which they were created for, which is benefit of the planet and humanity, basically to better our world in every way possible? You stipulate that there has to be project expenditures. It also fixes the problem of many people ask, very correctly so, it's a great question, how can you put all this money into the banking system or the world without creating hyperinflation or basically devaluing the currencies? Because, for instance, if the accounts specifically that are available in the U.S. for our exchanges, they're way into the quadrillions of dollars. The entire GDP, gross domestic product of the United States, is only about 16, 17 trillion. Right, so if you were to inject $1 quadrillion into the banking system, the value of the dollar it would basically be like a Zimbabwe dollar. We'd have to print notes in 100 trillion denominations, right? Well, the key solution to that, and it's quite clever in my opinion, my humble opinion, is that these funds are basically gigantic lines of credit, which are, and the credit is backed by the collateral gold, the gold collateralization. lines of credit are not counted in a financial metric for capturing the amount of currency, or dollars in our case, out in the economy. All right? So you don't view these tremendous amounts of dollars that'll be available for the exchanges as like a big pile of money sitting on the books, the accounting ledgers of the banks. It's a line of credit. And like any line of credit, many of you have one with your home, a home equity loan. That's a line of credit. And you're able to borrow up to a certain amount and use it and spend it as you go. So the bank opens a line of credit. You're given a debit card or, attached to that line of credit. If you need to go out and buy a refrigerator or paint your house or get some remodeling done or whatever, you're literally spending that money, and that's what turns it from a line of credit, one expenditure or purchase at a time, out into the economy. But even if you have a large home and you have a $100,000 line of credit, home equity loan, that $100,000 is not on the books of the bank as real money, or more specifically as M1 monetary supply. Lines of credit are not counted in the M1 monetary supply in economic parlance, right? However, if you have a $100,000 line of credit against your house and you go out and buy a bunch of new furniture for your house with that, and that furniture costs $20,000, you have now injected $20,000 into the economy from that line of credit, and it begins to flow out, and the economy grows, and people are put to work, and those types of things. So that's exactly how the GCR funds are working. They're large amounts, but they're just digital, and the only time they become real is as they're actually spent. And the way they will actually be spent is us doing projects, which grows the economy. So as an economy gets stronger and grows, the amount of currency in the system doesn't shock the value of the currency by devaluing it. It is literally being released into the economy through expenditures, which are absorbed into the normal everyday salaries and purchases and making concrete, steel, buying houses, buying cars, traveling, all of those types of things. All right? And that's how it's rolling out. And there is a multiple phase to the rollout of the exchanges. The usual question is, are they all going to go at once, or all the exchanges going to start at once, whether they're private or, more, or, groups or whatnot? I've always said, and I'll continue to say, I don't know. And nobody else does either. All right? Well, I do know that there are some very specific certain currency transactions and bond transactions that will kick this all off. So technically, will some exchanges happen before other levels of exchange happen? Like, for instance, the mysterious 800 numbers, which is more of a, broader phase of the exchange process? Yes. All right. Will it be weeks or months in between the first exchanges or transactions and before it gets out to the broadest level? I don't know. Okay? My guess is that it's going to be pretty close together based on things that I have. And, of course, once you get below that level, there's so many different groups, so many different projects connected, so many different channels coming in, whether it's going through the U.S. Treasury or whether it's going direct from Asia to, an exchange direct from Asia into a U.S. bank under a private transaction or a private group, okay? Whether a group is one person or, 100 people or whatnot. How that will all time out in terms of when they go through the different layers or phases, I don't know, right? But it makes sense to me that it has to be pretty quick. All right. So I went on for way longer than 10 minutes to that, but I think that needed to be said to kind of bring the whole thing into perspective, in a lot of different areas. So with that, let's open up the Q&A and let's have at it.
Okay. Anyone who'd like to ask a question, please press *6, and that will get you in the queue. In the meantime, Shawn, I did have a couple questions emailed to me on gladiators, and the first one is, what part does the IMF play? Are you do you have any information on that? Is there anything that you can tell us about that?
Yep. The IMF, let's look at the IMF as an infrastructure, right? I mean, the IMF has relationships with every country on the planet, all right? They're basically a gigantic bank. And the IMF also manages the currency rates between the different sovereign currencies around the planet. Okay, the IMF manages currency pair values through the BIS, the Bank for International Settlement. All right, so it makes sense that in a global currency shift, which is what we're going through, the IMF would be a key player in that because it already has all the infrastructure and the systems and the people and the resources to manage the valuations of currencies as the GCR becomes more and more public over time. And I'm still saying that's going to take years, okay? It's not going to happen overnight, in my opinion. It can't. It would just create massive chaos in the markets and all of that. So, yeah, the IMF has the tools when it comes down to when they finally start to publicly announce that the global currencies of the world or the key currencies of the world, the 5 that are in the basket, are actually moving to a, gold-backed or asset-backed system. It makes sense that the IMF is going to manage that, all right? So I don't get caught up in whether we think the IMF are the good guys or the bad guys. There's good guys and bad guys in every agency and every government around the world, right? So they just look at them as the infrastructure and the workflow or the process that manages this shift, right? So it makes sense that the IMF is going to hold the key, whatever the value of a share or a share of gold is, and then every country through their systems and protocols and processes will have a valuation to gold that is simply administrated and managed and reported by the IMF. The same way when you look up, on the internet or you walk into a bank and you see the board and it tells you the euro is 106 to the dollar, where does that information come from? Well, yeah, it comes from the bank, but where does the bank get it from? Well, it comes from the BIS eventually, right? Goes to the Treasury. Where does the United Nations get their rates from? They fix their rates for a month at a time, but those rates are based on information and data they get from the BIS, which is part of the IMF structure. So it makes sense that as we're rolling out a new asset gold-backed currency system worldwide, there's got to be a mechanism to report it and see what's what, and that will be the IMF.
Okay.
Or the BIS, basically.
All righty. Okay, so we'll start at the top of the queue. 575.
Hi. Hello, Shawn. How you doing? It's Morgan.
Hi, Morgan.
Okay, a couple of questions came up. At one point you had said, and I just would like some clarity on this. So we don't know yet, of course we won't know till we go into the bank what the percentage is. Like, in other words, if we have Zim, a certain percentage of what we have has to go for projects.
Maybe not. Okay.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh, so that's still up in the air.
Well, like you said, we don't know until you actually go in.
Right, walk in.
Right.
Okay, so are we still, at one point you had suggested that we do, like if we take a small amount of what we have or whatever, that we do an annuity for ourselves. Are we still allowed to do that?
Oh, man, you're going back in ancient history. Yeah, just for everyone out there, we realize that, things that I may have said or opinions that I may have held a year ago or whatever, they certainly are subject to change as more is revealed and, my experience grows and interactions with this, so things are subject to change. But, here again, I'm not a financial advisor, right? And back then, I was just advising. Somebody had asked a question, if you're only getting a certain amount, you want to take care of yourself first and guarantee a revenue stream. And that's why I said, I don't recommend annuities. That, but the word annuity just means you're making an investment that spins off a fixed amount of cash every
in other words,
quarter.
if I took all my money and put it in projects, I wouldn't have anything for me.
Well, I didn't.
You know what I'm saying? And then once that money's gone, it's gone. Yeah.
Well, you certainly can invest. It's up to you how much you're going to do in projects and all of that. I mean, certainly, I'm. There's a rule I follow. Rigidly, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others.
Exactly. But are you saying that annuities are no good, or what are you saying?
I'm not a financial advisor. I don't believe in annuities in the terms as they are. They're really just, the main people that make out in annuities are the people that sell them to you, and there's a lot of fees involved. There are much better ways to secure a revenue stream that you fix for yourself and to take care of yourself and your family and all of that.
Or I find out what those are.
Take care of you. Yeah, all I'm going to say is what I'll say to all of these kinds of questions is once you do this, you need to get a financial advisor and a wealth manager and all of that, and they will do all that for you. They will advise you, right? You just tell them what you want, and they do it. Yeah, we're not here, and I'm not here to give financial advice on what to do with any proceeds you get from an exchange. I mean, that would be a financial advisor. And what I will say is anyone that does not set up a financial advisor and professionals to help them achieve their financial goals, both in projects and in personal security, for your financial security, you're playing with fire.
Right now, will the banks? I'm going back a while, but will the banks? Who are those people that were involved with the bank that were going to help us with that?
Well, every bank every bank has a whole wealth management.
Will they help us with that kind of stuff so that and give us the proper information?
They'll give you all the information that they have, like they offer today. I mean, every bank offers private wealth management services. It's up to you if you want to use them or not. I personally am going with independent people that are not connected to any specific bank because I want to make sure they're working for me and not for the bank, right?
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So independent people is where we want to go. And we just have to do research and know who to trust.
It's pretty easy to do. It really is. I mean,
is it?
The key is you find a couple of people, you look at their resumes, they publish them, they'll show it to you when you meet with them, and then you ask them, can I talk to some of your clients? Right?
Oh, really?
They may say yes or no. If they say no, okay, move on. But
I
they
see.
should have some people, that they can say, hey, I've been managing this person's money for the last 5 years. I'll ask them if they can talk to you and tell you what I've done for them, right?
Okay, well, and what do you call these people? I mean, what? Give me a title here.
They're wealth managers.
Wealth managers.
And private, financial advisors, wealth managers. They can be attorneys or they can be licensed financial professionals that are trained in listening to what you want to do with your money, and they'll advise the proper way, of course, with all the tax structure and all of this kind of stuff. Anything you want to do, trusts, foundations, investments, projects, projects get into a little bit other managed professionals. But yeah.
Hey, what was the name of those people? There was another thing associated with the bank who were going to help us with that at one point. What was it? What were their names? There was a name of this group that was going to help us with all kinds of stuff that manage accounts for people.
That would be the wealth management.
But there was a name. There was a title.
Are you talking about Abbott Downing?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Morgan?
Abbott Downing is a financial wealth management firm, right? So, yeah. But do you want to go out?
Are they still going to be involved in this?
People. Yes, of course they are. Yep.
Okay. So you think when you say independent, you don't mean them?
All right. We're actually getting into a little too much detail here because I'm not a financial advisor. All right. So you just need to go out and talk to different people. Of course, the bank will recommend people. You talk to them. If you don't, but then go out and just Google for financial management firms, and you can't talk to too many people. Interview people over the course of a month, and then select, right? And go with your research and and recommendations and references and things like that. So.
Thank you, Morgan. Okay, our next caller is anonymous.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, anonymous.
Hi. This is Heart of Gold from Gladiators.
Howdy.
Hi, dear.
Hi. I just have two questions. One is, you had mentioned on the site a little while ago that a sort of there was a circuitous route or another route was established to process the exchanges that would circumvent the Rothschild network that was being blocked by the funds.
Yep.
And then and then you talked about the Zim exchanges that were going to sort of play a role in that. So I just wondered if you had any more information about that, or is that still what's happening?
Yes. Both. Yeah. That the Western banking system, and it really is the Rothschild, dynasty, right? And then underneath them are all the other guys, right? The former Rockefellers, and you know them as the board of trustees from the Federal Reserve and all of that kind of stuff. So there are channels of funding for exchanges, or whether I just use the general word exchange, right? But they're really called other things: asset swaps, trade deals, things of that nature. I mean, these currencies are basically being traded exactly and handled exactly the way you handle natural gas and oil deals, right? And they're assets. So, and somebody has to back the tanker, because the tanker is owned by one party, and then the oil is owned by another party. And then there's the buyer of the oil, that's another party. And there's people in between that broker all of these deals, and insurance companies and all of that. These currencies are going through a very similar channel. Now, when it gets out to the broader level, like, let's say eventually, dinar land or whatever, it's not going to be handled that way because there's been a mechanism set up. But but in the interim, we're talking about for parties that have very large amounts of these currencies, and that could be a group of a number of people, or it could be an individual. All right, there are other channels that have been set up and established to handle these transactions in a very private manner, just like oil and gas and wheat and grain and sugar and all these other commodities are bought and sold and brokered and all of that. So, yeah, the only thing I want to remind you of regarding the Rothschild or Western banking system is they could be turned on. They could get electricity, in my analogy, at any time. All right? They have the whole structure set up. They just don't have access to the funds yet. But that could happen. It could happen tomorrow. It's just whatever is preventing them or keeping them blocked is obviously there's a disagreement somewhere. And one party is going to have to finally say, all right, we'll do it, and we'll comply, and we'll agree to the terms of this, and then the spigot is turned on, right? So, yes. So there are multiple channels or multiple mechanisms that have been set up to intake these currencies and bonds, and that's what it's called, intake, in exchange for gold-backed currency, digital money.
Great. Okay.
Right.
And so, if the Western banking system Rothschild Christmas tree isn't funded or doesn't turn on, then will people, like, I'm in the only group I'm in is the Wells Fargo list. Would I be as part of that? Would I be notified?
Yeah,
then?
the Wells Fargo list is part of the Western banking system structure. Okay, so so yeah, you'd need the whole Western, the Rothschild trustees, family, bloodline, whatever you want to call it. They need access to the funds in order to do that, or they could be replaced and something else is put in there to utilize the same structure, and the Rothschilds are just cut out altogether, right? I think that's actually the way it's going to go down. But I won't say any more about that, or I'll have black SUVs outside of my door.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, but here's the other channel or avenue I was talking about. Let's say there's a long period of time between, the more private transactions happening, and then the general exchanges, which are part of the whole 800 number structure, right? Infrastructure. Let's say there's a long period of time, like let's say the private exchanges start tomorrow, and very certain groups and individuals are now being funded. All of those are deeply connected to humanitarian and economic projects. That you cannot get funded in that private side without a whole bunch of oversight and things of that nature related to the projects. Because again, as I said earlier in my dissertation, the only reason these transactions are being allowed to happen from the source of the gold and the world global settlements is the projects, right? So the other avenue is if there's a long period of time, which I don't know, could be quick, could be long. Anyone that tells you they know, just don't believe them, because that information is not known. All right, so the groups or the individuals or the entities, there are many foundations and charitable organizations that are exclusively set up that own a lot of Zim or a lot of dinar or whatever, and they're going to exchange under these private terms for the sole purpose of executing, hundreds, if not, many hundreds of projects, right? And those project funds will come out, and quite a few of the projects are to help people that need help, right? Financial assistance and that type of thing. So my bottom line is of the private side transactions, those funds will become available to help a lot of people, and that could be a lot of people that are still potentially waiting for the more broader exchanges to begin, right? So one way or the other, these funds are going to get to everybody, okay? I can tell you that for a fact, okay? And they'll get out quickly, very quickly, all right, once the first private transactions execute.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks so much.
Bye-bye. All right. Oops. Next caller, Cowboy.
Hi, how you doing?
Great.
Hello.
A little bit for us.
Shawn, in late December, you shared with us that the funds being utilized by China had received, I think you called it amnesty, satisfying the AML compliance. And additionally, you were looking at certain, you called them level 8, level 9 grade paymasters that you had assumed would start paymastering the next week, which had been the last week of December or the first week of January. At this point in time, has all that occurred, and where are we in that process?
I can tell you that the key paymasters that are involved with the entities that are responsible for purchasing these currencies, they are all funded. Yep. What we're waiting for is the green light for those paymasters to take action so that they can actually buy, right? So even more clarification, the buyers want to buy and the sellers want to sell, but there's one thing, above that needs to grant the green light for that to happen. It's not like the entities, you can call them trustees, or in some cases you can call them elders or whatever. It's not like they're sitting around and they've got all this money and they're like, you know what, let's just go to Tahiti for 2 weeks and maybe we'll get around to start purchasing the Zim and the dinar and all that. That's not the case. They want to buy as badly as we want to sell our currencies, right? But there has to be the situation or the scenario that meets all the criteria before the buyers will be given the green light to commence purchasing these things. And, well, I'm hoping as of last week that happened, okay? So, yeah, there was a key thing within the collateralization, placing the gold and connecting the gold as collateral to the, in particular the U.S. dollar. That happened last week. So I'm hoping that it was the last thing and that we're going to, there will be some specific activities on the buy-sell side starting very soon, over the next several days, But I don't know. Every week goes by, I think this week's going to be a great week based on stuff that I hear, and yet something just doesn't commence, right? So it's, but I recognize it's a process. I recognize it's a massive thing, and but let's just say late last week something significant did happen, and now I'm hoping that was the one thing that we've been waiting for this whole the exchange phase, the buy-sell phase to start. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
One last question, if I may. You had mentioned that on the eastern side of the west-east equation, that because the western side, the Rothschilds, had been somewhat reticent to meet the demands or do what they needed to do, that the eastern side had actually started some processes on their own, slower and less in number, but that as that developed, that could increase and maybe act as leverage on the western side. Is that still progressing?
Yeah, the key progression part of that was the amnesty, and the amnesty specifically means that the digital transfers were allowed to happen from one, let's say, country to another or one location to another without being encumbered by the banking system, right? So that happened. And so, yeah, that continues to progress, and that's what amnesty means. It means that these funds, and there's a tremendous number of zeros behind these accounts and these funds. They needed assurance that they were going to be able to be transferred from, let's say, Asia to the United States or Europe without any shenanigans, as I call them, by the banking system, which means amnesty, right? It means you can't make up, like we need to stop this fund transfer because we think it could be terrorist activity or money laundering or something. So the amnesty document or designation allowed those funds to move freely from one sovereign nation to another, free of any shenanigans. That's what the amnesty meant. All right. And then once the amnesty, once the funds are then, received and recognized under the sovereign jurisdiction of, say, like the United States or Canada or Germany or France or whatever, but now you're in a jurisdiction, a sovereign jurisdiction, which now it applies to local tax laws or tax code, right? So that the amnesty has nothing to do with local taxation once those funds are there. And there's been a lot of debates and documents being signed and treaties, or not treaties, but regulatory oversight and all of that. Once now the funds are, I'll give you an example. So now you've got funds available within the banking system of the United States that have 25 zeros after it. What happens now? Like when you or I take our currency in for an exchange at some point, how is that going to be treated and recognized by the local tax authority? In our case, it's the IRS, right? So that was a whole other area outside of the international amnesty that had to be worked out, and it has been, to the best of my knowledge right now. So again, I'm really optimistic that we're really close, right? So.
Well, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Cowboy. Okay, once again, if you have a question for Shawn, please press *6 and get in the queue. Our next caller, 970.
Hi, this is Margie. I've got a question about the lines of credit. When I like the metaphor of having the money or the money that we would get as we exchange our currency showing up as a line of credit rather than showing up as M1 in monetary terms. But the question that comes up is, well, when I had a line of credit, I had to pay it back. And I don't believe that these have to be paid back.
Right. No. Okay. So probably I wasn't descriptive enough when I was talking about that. The line of credit is recognized at the sovereign level, at the country level, at the banking system level, right? So, for instance, Wells Fargo may have like accounts with the relative, let's just call it the GCR funds accounts sitting at Wells Fargo or wherever here in the United States. That's where it's recognized or accounted for in accounting terms as a line of credit, right? But when we actually exchange under any, whether it's a private group or whether it's later, with general, exchanges, 800 numbers or whatever, those funds are transferred. You now own those funds, right? It's okay. Not, but yet it'll still be accounted for behind the scenes as a line of credit because it's just digital money, right? I mean, you're looking at it and it doesn't matter how much it is. It's just a bunch of numbers. But in terms of, ledger balances, what side of the ledger is it on, it's considered a line of credit. But as you spend it, it's real money because you're putting it now out into the economy by spending it, whether that's taking a vacation or buying a house or doing a project, starting a foundation or a charity, building houses, paving roads, doing bridges or whatever, medical technology. You're spending that money. And so it comes out of that, and that's where it's recognized as real M1 at that point. So the line of credit doesn't apply to you or me directly. It's not like we have to pay that back. It's not a loan. It's just accounted. It's just accounted for as a line of credit, so it doesn't debase the currency, right, and devalue it.
So then we just own that amount of the line of credit just goes down as we spend it.
Well, it'll be accounted for by the bank or the U.S. Treasury and then the IMF or whatever as a line of credit, treated that way in accounting terms. But to you and me, we're just spending money. Period.
Okay.
All right?
I just wanted to make sure we don't, because I had never heard anything about us having to pay it back, and I just want to make sure that I'm not going to be there.
Yeah, that was my mistake. I didn't mean to say that we are being issued lines of credit when we exchange our currency. No, it's just that's how it's accounted for in the economic system.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. That answers my question.
Good question, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Once again, if you have a question for Shawn, *6 and get yourself in the queue. Our next caller, 856. Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Hi. Speak up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Hi.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got just, I'm wanting to know just a little bit more on, so if you are a currency holder and you go into a bank or an exchange center, the banks and the people at the exchange centers, there's no management on their behalf of, like, your business plan's not good enough, your project doesn't, I guess ultimately the question is, like, how extensive does your business plan have to be before you go into your currency exchange, or is that just completely up to the person holding the currency?
Yeah, now you're in an area where I really can't provide any information because although there are other people that were part of the whole Christmas tree analogy that I described, right, setting this whole system up, purportedly you can discuss, you have projects when you go into your exchange, and you'll be directed to a different desk or office or whatever, and to discuss, your projects, and there may be an opportunity to get a higher rate, but there'll be other conditions along with that, of course. But I really don't know if that's actually going to be the case, and we won't know until we go in at that level. At other levels, all of that has already been established, right? At the private level, there are clear, let's just say, terms and conditions that are outlined for projects, right? And that includes the tax, the IRS taxation on the funds as well as related to projects on the private side. So if you go into an exchange center, and let's just be clear, an exchange center is a bank, all right? It's a bank office. It could be a temporary place set up somewhere if it's a remote location or whatever, but, the vast majority of these exchange centers are just bank offices, right? I mean, they're already in existence, right? They're already there. So, I don't know if you're going to walk in and say, well, I have some projects. I'd like to talk about that and see what effect that has on available rates of exchange or the value of what I get for my dinar or zim or whatever. But how they do that, all I can recommend is based on what I know from other procedures related to projects, is you don't have to, if you can do a formal business plan, do it. I would recommend to everybody listening, if you think you have a project but it's just an idea, that's not a project. Okay? If you say you have a project and they say, what's your project? Well, I'm going to build homes for the homeless. Well, can you tell us how you're going to do that? Well, I'm going to build homes for the homeless, right? You see, that's not going to impress anybody. So it means you haven't thought it through. All right. So But how, are they going to judge that and sit there and do that at your exchange appointment? I don't see how that's practical. But if what what other people are saying is true, you will go to a separate desk and they will say, can you outline your project, or do you have, a couple of pages of description? Do you know when you're going to start? I can tell you that, when you're going to start and how well you've thought it through is a key point. And the other key point is, how much money will you need to execute this project? That's another key point. All right. So, estimate, depending on your project, say, I'm going to need, $100 million to do this. Right. And I know how I'm going to use that $100 million, and it's going to take me, 5 years to execute it, or 3 years, or 10 years, depending on the nature of the project. So the more details you've thought through on your projects, the better it's going to be. I can get hung up on this, do I need to have a formal business plan? Oh, man, sure, it helps tremendously. If you can do it, you know how to do it, I would do it.
Right. It's just that I know just from doing previous business plans that, the last one I did takes you a month and a half, and it can cost a bit of money to get the, financials and the CPA involved and those types of things. So, I would say all you really need is an executive summary. Right.
All right. You don't need every detail laid out, your marketing plans, but you should know if you're going to employ people or hire people as part of your project. You should say, I'm going to hire 50 to 100 people, because remember, the key point of the projects is economic development and humanitarian relief, right? So, so they're going to say, so how is that going to affect the economy? If you haven't thought that through, it's not going to come across like you've thought it through, right? I mean, you should be able to say, well, in the year one, I'm going to hire 50 people. And in year two, I'm going to hire an additional 100 people, right? And we're going to expand from one state and then to another state, or we're going to do, depending on the nature of your project, you should have those kinds of, basic points thought through so you can intelligently describe and discuss your project. So, in the end, I believe that, there'll be a process, and they'll say, you'll meet with a project team, and they'll discuss your stuff. And, I would not be afraid or nervous to say, well, look, I don't have a formal business plan, but I've got an executive summary. I know how many people I'm going to hire. I know, how I'm going to do this. And, of course, projects based on things that you actually are passionate about, that you care about, are pretty important, because, or things that you know about. So, for instance, if you're an engineer and you've been an engineer for your career, if you have a project and it's got some engineering aspect to it, obviously that's a big plus, because that's what you know about, right? If you've been a social worker, for your career, and you're going to do something social as a project, to help people and provide programs, and you know something about that, that's a big plus, right? So if you're not a doctor and you say, I'm going to do this medical technology, but you don't know anything about it, someone's going to say, well, how are you really going to manage that if you don't know anything about it? But your solution could be, I'm going to hire a bunch of doctors. I just know about this medical technology, and I'll find the people that know about it, and I'm going to hire them, and they're going to work for me, do the project. So there's all kinds of ways around that, right. But you have to think it through, and you've got to be able to talk intelligent about what you want to do.
So, and for all those people out there that have been business owners before and possibly have, gone through a personal bankruptcy, I'm not necessarily asking you for advice on this, but bankers are bankers, so I know do you believe that would affect their outlook of your capacity to be successful in humanitarian projects? Do you think it would affect how you want to work with you?
Okay, I'll give you my opinion. Bankers are not project people. Like, if you were describing to a banker that, let's say you're a doctor and you know about all these wonderful new health procedures and things that are going to really help people, but it never got funded, so it couldn't make it through, or it's being fought by the pharmaceutical industry. How is a banker going to know anything about the medical technology business? They don't, right? So I wouldn't, it doesn't make any sense to me, and this is my opinion. It's not a banker that's going to look at your project. I think maybe there'll be some people that are there that are project experienced or whatever. They may not be medical people or engineers, or they don't know anything about construction or helping the homeless or whatever. All they're going to look for, though, is that you know what you're talking about. Right? And then you'll go to the next step, which will be working with people in an area that is related to your project. That's what makes sense to me.
So they're there to negotiate the rates on behalf of their bank with you in your projects, and that's pretty much it. They're not going to manage the project. They're not going to oversee it. They're not going to be involved in it.
No, banks don't manage projects. Banks manage money, right? So, yeah, and here's the other thing. A lot of people make these assumptions, and, a great way to keep your head clear on this is to just use common sense. And it's not like the banks have clear run of, people say you're going to negotiate with the banker. Remember, the banks have clear instructions on rates. They don't make them up, right? There's guidelines. And, so the way I see this working based on what I've heard is you mentioned that you've got projects, and then the banker is going to say, oh, okay, you need to go see these people down the hall, right? And at that point, you're in the project realm, and then those people have their marching orders as to what the rates are and under the project scenario, right? So, but if you're just going to do a straight-out exchange and all of that and don't discuss projects, then the banker himself is going to say, okay, here's what we can offer you. I mean, it's not like they make it up. They know what it's going to be. Okay?
Right. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have a couple quick questions that just got emailed to me. Shawn, we only have one caller left in the queue. And the first question is, how long can they drag it out while they're putting the pieces together behind the scenes?
That's a rhetorical question, right? Okay. All right. So first of all, the way that question was phrased, how long can they drag it out?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody is dragging anything out. Everybody wants to do this. The banks want to do it because they're in the business of managing money. All right. The source of these funds and the primary, architects of the plan want to do this because that's their mandate, is to get these funds out into the world, right, for the greatest good of all, basically. All right. They want to do it. The funds are there. The gold is there. The people that are the sellers, as I just loosely call them, that's us, the people with the currency, we certainly want to sell. So who's dragging it out, right? Nobody's dragging it out. It's a process. And certain things have to be worked out and ironed out and understood because, once they turn this spigot on, they can't turn it off, right? It's not like they can start and then go, oops, we weren't ready. We didn't figure this part out or that part out. So would I describe it as maybe they're overly cautious in making sure that they thought of every scenario, whether it's security or whether it's, taxation, or whether everybody who's going to sign on the dotted line understands what their role is and all of that, and do some things change at the last minute that need to be addressed? Absolutely. But that's just a process. All right? It's a normal process of doing a massive thing within the global economy, and it affects everyone everywhere on the planet eventually. So I just want to be very clear. It's not being drug out like somebody is just saying, nah, this is just not going to happen. You know, I'm in a bad mood today, and I just don't want to do it, right? You know, no, it's negotiations and it's issues and things of that nature, you know, right down to the minutia, right? The minutia would be you and me, right? And then as you get bigger and bigger, it's the banks, and then it's the treasuries of every country, and then it's the economics, and then it's, you know, all the way out to the people that are making sure that these funds are going to be used for what they were destined to be used for. So that's the best way I'll answer that.
Awesome. Okay, the last question that was emailed to me was about Zim. And the person says, I hold Zim in a group, and I also have more Zim on hand. Will I be able to exchange both?
Can you repeat that? You kind of faded out on me
okay.
on my phone.
They have Zim with a group, and then they also have Zim that they have on hand. Will they be able to exchange both?
Should be able to, yeah. Yeah, I don't see any reason why you can't. So, I mean, these are just financial instruments, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the case of the Zim, they're bearer bonds, which means whoever is holding them can transact them, right? So, yeah, I never quite understood the rumors going around that say if you exchange with a group, you're not going to be able to exchange somewhere else. Yeah, there are issues about within the general, I'll just say general dinar land scenario, the Christmas tree, all the lights are there, we're just waiting for the electricity to be turned on. Within that, you know, I've heard it just like all of us have heard it, that if you, whatever rate you exchange at first is going to be the rate that you have to stay with, right? So, but that's really related to like double dipping and those kinds of things. But to say if you're in a group, you've got currency lodged with a group, and then you've still got some currency, you know, at home with you or whatever, you should be able to exchange it. I mean, the best case scenario is the group exchanges and groups get higher rates, and so when you go in, you're good. But if the group is not connected with the Western system, it's one of those other direct channels with Asia, you know, those rules don't apply at all, right? So it's really just within the local jurisdiction, or, you know, you know, so if you're lodged with a group that's in the U.S. Treasury and then you take it into a bank, more currency into a bank, that's also going through the U.S. Treasury, right? So they'll be able to see, you know, if you have a Social Security number and you did an exchange with a group, because if you exchange with a group or anywhere else, you still have to fill out a tax form. You have to acknowledge that you did this transaction. You received this money. There's no way around that. So yeah, there'll be several transactions, and they came in, but I've not heard anywhere that if you exchange with a group, you can't take your money into a bank. I mean, no. I mean, I'm in groups, and I also have currency with me. So I've not heard anything like that you can't do it.
Okay, great. Okay, our next caller is area code 469.
Jose here.
Jose, how you doing?
Wow,
hey, Jose.
I'm just hanging in there. This is getting a long call here. You guys are putting it all on the table. It sounds good.
Let's go fishing.
Yeah, I'm ready to.
So what's happening?
Well, let me hit you with some points here.
Okay.
You asked about the projects. All they need is a 3-page synopsis of what you're going to do. If you have clarity at that point, they will give you to another exchange officer that has more knowledge about the exchange groups. I mean, the projects. Okay. The projects. All right. They are trained to have a listing of projects that will fall into your category, and you can discuss it as them. The second thing is that they will allow you to change on-hand currency, because the general public, the internet people, anybody that has a so-called group is a secondary group. Now, the private side is independently structured to, we were given instructions, we were given training, we were given documents to sign that keep us at a certain level of exchange, and we cannot do on-hand exchanges in our Social Security number.
Yep, that's within the U.S. jurisdiction, right, under the Treasury and
yes. That's
US
the separation that you've been pretty clear on. The private side is private side, instructional, the demanding contracts, taxation, paperwork, and all of the above. That you cannot jeopardize that by on-hand currency, because your Social Security is mandated to that specific exchange. Any other subgroups are allowed to do exchanges with the group and then do some on-hand exchanging on your own.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. There we go. Further clarification on that. Thank you, Jose.
Okay, and the rest of it, I'm going to plead the fifth.
Exactly. I know what you're talking about. Yep. So, okay.
So,
how are you feeling, Jose? You feeling better?
Yes.
Good to know. Good. I'm glad. Okay.
All right.
We're going to go ahead and move on. Thanks so much, Jose.
Thank you,
Thank
Jose.
you. God bless everybody.
You too, honey. God bless you.
Everyone.
Okay. Our next caller is on a VoIP dialer.
Hello. Thank you to both of you for making this available for those of us that are not in private groups. Really appreciate that. My question is regarding the ZIM, and that originally I was told that this is, like you said, a sovereign bond, and because of I have the 100 trillion, and even if the rate was $1, let's say, is the ZIM originally, is this specifically for humanitarian projects only, and then the other currencies are for somebody that basically just wants to better their lives and family and friends and people they come across? I think the answer is probably no, but I just want to have clarity around that, just because of the rates. It just seems like a very high number.
Okay, yeah. Well, where you got the dollar from, I don't know, but the ZIM. Okay, each currency is slightly different. Okay, the dinar is being treated differently than the ZIM. The VND is kind of an enigma right now. Nobody is talking about the VND in terms of private stuff right now.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Did you say VND, the Vietnamese dong?
Yeah, the Vietnamese dong,
okay.
VND. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, I can tell you at the higher levels on the private side. Okay, I use the term higher level figuratively. It just means that the reason there are groups is because at the closer you get to the source of the funds, where the asset backing is coming from, the collateralization of the currencies is coming from. The closer you get to dealing at that level, the higher the amount of the currency you have to have. There's minimum. It's like a poker game. You can sit down at a 25-cent ante-up table, or you can sit down at a $100 ante table, right? But if you don't have $100, you can't sit at the table, right? So you have to go to the smaller table, poker game. It's the same with this. The higher you get or the closer you get to the source of the funds, the more currency you have to have to sit at the table. And that's the whole reason these groups were formed, because most of us can't get near the amounts that are required to deal at that, I'll just call it the sovereign level or the source level, right? I mean, the amounts required are tremendous. So in spite of all the rumors about groups being scams and all of this stuff, it's just crap, right? I mean, the only reason groups formed is because it's a bunch of people like us saying, "Hey, listen, we have a path to get to the source, or closer to the source than, say, the general exchanges, if whenever that starts to happen. But we have to have, to sit at the table, you've got to have a large amount, and that's not because it's an exclusive club and you have to be rich or anything like that. It's just when you're dealing with these source levels, they just don't have the capacity at that level to exchange, like 1,000, a million dinar or a single 100 trillion Zimbabwe note. It would end up being, millions of people. They're just not equipped to handle it. They don't have the resources at that level to do that. So the groups were formed by, people that decided, let's pool our currency together, and if we can get enough together of that currency, we can sit at the table, right? And that's exactly what happened, right? So the other part of your question was the Zimbabwe. The Zimbabwe is treated a little bit differently, and when you're at the private level, it's all about the projects. There is no Zim deal happening on the private level that is not joined at the hip and completely centered on as the crux of the entire transaction. It is all about projects. You have to guarantee that there are projects going to happen. And not only do you have to guarantee that, you have to prove it later, right? And if you don't prove it, then the taxes go up and all kinds of other things happen, because the tax treaty around these project rates has been established because these monies are going to be used for economic development and humanitarian projects. So now you're starting to see the connection, right, with tax treaties and, these types of things. I can tell you, anyone that's telling you these funds are tax-free, they don't know what they're talking about, all right? They are taxed. And the tax simply is a way for the sovereign nations, those tax revenues are going to pay off all the sovereign debts that are out there. That's part of the plan, right? There's no nefarious things going on here. It's just that's how the countries are going to resolve their debts. It's through the revenue brought in through the tax. It's rolled back dollars, and it goes into the Treasury, and the Treasury, lo and behold, can suddenly start paying down our $20 trillion debt, right? So, so at the closer to the source you get, specifically with the Zim, it's all about the projects. You can't, so you need a certain amount to sit at the table in the beginning, but then you also have to agree and prove and do all this stuff around projects, right? So when it gets down to, if you're, going to get an appointment number and you're just going to go into an exchange center, if you bring up projects, then those kind of things will start to kick in, and it's, and you'll have those meetings and that kind of thing. But if you just want to exchange it at whatever the prevailing rates that are offered just for a straight-out exchange with no projects or anything like that, it's just a flat exchange, and you're done, right? So it's up to each one of us, right, to make that.
And so that would be also include the Zim, because I mean, if I just have the Zim notes, and I'm not part of a group or a private group or anything, I'd just be walking in, to the Redemption Center and sitting down, and I do have project ideas, but I have to lay it out. But the Zim is still exchangeable on a individual level.
Well, I'd be remiss if I said yes, it is, because I don't know until it actually happens at that level, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I have Zim, and I'm hoping to get called. I'll make an appointment, and I'm hoping to do it as well. But it kind of makes sense when you hear some of the information that's put out in dinar land, where it says when you make an appointment and they ask you what currencies you have, if you mention Zim, they're gonna put you into a different place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is because the Zim is different than the other currencies, and the Zim, quite frankly, represents the most substantial, highest rate of return that there is. I mean, it makes the dinar and the Vietnamese dong look silly, actually, right? So that's why, and I believe there'll be, again, assuming that the whole exchange center scenario plays out and all of that. That's why you'll be, if you identify and you say you have Zim, you'll go to a different place than if you only had dinar, right? So because they're going to be equipped to handle that particular asset, right, at that point. So, and whether or not you've got a project or it's project related, that's up to you. So it's and just remember, if you say you have projects and then when you learn about what you have to do to get a project rate on the Zim or even the dinar or whatever, if you don't like it, you're not comfortable with it, just go back and do the straight out exchange, right? It's not like, you have to take it. Once you say, I have projects, and then you're going to go into another office and then they'll say, if your projects aren't good enough, you're out of here. You just go back to the first office and say, okay, I'm not doing the project thing. I'm just going to do it straight exchange. Thank you. All right, and you're done.
Okay, thank you very much. Great questions. Our next caller is 708.
Hello.
First name, please.
Hey, this is Boss Man 7.
Hey, Boss Man.
How's it going?
All right.
Good. I just got one question. I wanted to find out, is the bank going to still do the trust, the skeleton trust, or should we have one when we go in to do the exchange?
Okay, I don't know what a skeleton trust is. You can Google it and you're not going to find anything. All right. There technically is no such thing as a skeleton trust. There are lots of trusts, but what a skeleton trust is, I don't know, and neither does anybody I know that's in the financial and banking world. But the what I would call it is, if you don't have an account already set up, the funds are put into what's called a fiduciary account, and that's just a fancy name for, basically it's a place to park that money where it is safe and secure, and there's a fiduciary manager, which means it's a person at the bank that ensures that nothing happens with that money without your permission. And it is also it's not a retail bank account like a checking account or normal kind of thing. That money is not put up by the bank to be loaned out as part of their fractional lending system. It just means you park your money until you decide what to do with it, and no tellers have access to that. The account is blinded, called a blind account, right? And, so it can't be seen by anybody, like even if you walk into the bank to cash a check or do whatever you would normally do at a bank, when you identify yourself to the teller, they can't see that account. They don't know who you are with that, right? So, it's just a place to park the money that's secure. These are, gold-backed dollars, and they'll be treated differently. And it just ensures that you're secure and all that. And that's what you'll do. If you already have a trust, and that trust already has a bank account at the bank you go to, then you can put it there, right? But if you don't worry about it. They'll put it into a fiduciary account, and then you go from there. And you structure, and then you can move that money wherever you want.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Bossman. Okay, our next caller is 360. Your first name, please.
This is Vern, and I have a question on...
Hi, Vern.
Hi. I noticed in the news last week, on Friday I think it was, that the IMF released $12 billion to Iraq. Is that part of the first of our payouts, or do you have a comment on that?
I got to think about that for a second. I certainly do have comments on that, but I need to process that. Okay. The only way I can answer that is what you're seeing is the surface show between the banking establishment, the IMF, and Iraq. I mean, Iraq is obviously spending a ton of money on financing their war effort against their occupiers, right? The battle for Mosul and all that. And so, they're running up a hell of a budget and, hell of an expense, and they've got to pay for it. I think a lot of the information around anything that's public about what Iraq is doing is really irrelevant to the GCR. As a matter of fact, I know it's irrelevant. All right, it's completely irrelevant. And so the takeaway is I wouldn't look at anything that's publicly announced around Iraq to be relevant to the GCR. Iraq there's a special arrangement for their currency with the IMF and the world body in general, and their currency will be revalued. It is not going to happen the way most people think it's going to happen. You're not going to wake up one day and you're going to look at the exchange boards at a bank or online and see $3, for the dinar. You're not going to see the Iraqi dinar floated on Forex and all this kind of stuff. That's just not the way it's going to happen. The Iraqi dinar, even if it's under an 800 number scenario and you go into an exchange center and you exchange, it's a private exchange, and it's not got anything to do with what's going to be seen publicly or anything like that. Under the public side of the GCR, the Iraqi dinar, as well as the Vietnamese dong, as well as the Indonesian rupiah, as well as the Mexican peso, and every other currency on the planet are going to slowly start moving towards parity in the public eye. It's happening right now, right? Most people don't realize that. Just look at the euro, which was at one point, $1.34, and now it's at $1.05, $1.06, and all that. The dollar and the euro are moving to parity, right? Which means 1-to-1, and something close to that. So the key currencies are going to start doing that. You're going to start seeing that happening with the Chinese yuan very soon and all of that. So bottom line, whether the IMF loaned Iraq money and all of these kinds of things, that's just part of the normal, everyday, public type of stuff. But it doesn't have anything to do with when, where, or how our exchanges for the Iraqi dinar are going to happen, if that makes sense.
Okay, so we're going to just kind of ease into it gradually. We won't have a big turnover all at once.
Right. I mean, as a matter of fact, if you're, all of us here talking, thinking about the GCR and the RV of the dinar, the fact that the IMF had to loan Iraq money makes totally no sense, right? It's like it's almost like, why would the IMF have to loan Iraq money if Iraq is going to be one of the wealthiest nations on the planet in terms of the strength of their currency and all of this? Why do they need a loan? Well, there's your answer. It's just public stuff, and they're going to continue to do this out in the public. And slowly they will say Iraq is now stable and solid, and their currency is beginning to increase in value. And miraculously, those loans from the IMF will just disappear in the thing. Oh, all of a sudden Iraq can pay back their debt. Yeah, but it's not any kind of indication of the when we're going to exchange or anything like that in terms of the loans or whatnot.
You think it'll be advantageous for a person to wait and not trade off the first time it hits a buck?
No, if you get the opportunity to go into an exchange center and exchange your dinar, I would do it, and I would do it doggone fast, right? Here again, maybe you didn't hear what I said earlier. The dinar is not going to show up at $2.70 on Forex or in the public domain. It's just not going to happen, right? It's going to be a slow and gradual progression up. So if you get the opportunity to go in and you learn, that you can make an appointment and go in and exchange the dinar under the global currency reset program, you're going to want to do that, all right? Because Iraq will come out with a new currency, totally different note, as will Vietnam, all right? And those kinds of things. But in the public domain, they're just going to say, here's our new currency, and the old currency is gone now, right? And
right.
if you need evidence of that, simply look at what India did with their rupee, where they basically completely in overnight made 80% of the currency notes outstanding in their economy and around the world worthless, literally overnight. They just announced one morning, by the way, 82% of all the notes that are out there in cash in the rupee are no longer going to be accepted at the banks internationally. And we issued these new rupee notes, and those are the only ones that count now, that'll be, accepted around the bank. I mean, there are people all over the world that owned Indian rupee that are not Indian nationals, sovereigns, citizens, and literally overnight, whatever they owned in rupee was worthless, literally. So
right.
If you get
the
chance, I wouldn't buy into this. Wait for the rate to go up. Later is greater. That phrase and all that. Nope, don't do that. Just exchange what you got when you get the chance. Okay.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Vern. Okay, last chance. If you want to get in the queue, *6.
What time is it?
It is 7 p.m. West Coast.
Okay. So we're 2 hours into it. All right, good.
Yeah.
So, we'll take a few more questions.
Okay. 815.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, Silver Fox here.
Hi,
Silver Fox.
Yeah. Long call. Well, you answered a lot of my questions, but you were talking about the Indian rupee. Do you think that's what the United States will do with the USN? Like all of a sudden, here it is?
Nope. The public won't even notice the difference. In my opinion, based on the knowledge I have, the way this will start is you will see the pundits in the business, the financial community, whether it's CNBC or the Wall Street Journal or Bloomberg or whatever, they'll start reporting that the United States and other countries are beginning to adopt not only Basel III, but the new Basel IV regulations, and really all Basel IV is. It's an appendix of new things that they've added to Basel III. But then Basel V is coming shortly after that. And so they're going to start talking about the only way they're going to announce publicly what we all know as the GCR is, as it's being spoon-fed publicly, it will just be that banks are now, and treasuries, like the U.S. Treasury, sovereign currencies are adopting, well, not sovereign currencies, but the banks. Basel regulations are only about banks, not sovereign treasuries. But they're going to start saying that new regulations are taking effect. They've accelerated certain things, and now banks have to have a certain amount of collateral, to back their balance sheet. And if anybody's been paying attention, if you read the fine print within Basel III and Basel IV, it specifically classifies gold as a Class 1 asset, which means that, so most people just interpret that as saying, oh, that means a bank can buy gold and kind of keep it in a vault, and that's on their balance sheet, and that's how they're going to protect themselves from potential economic instability like what happened in 2008. No, what that means is they're recognizing gold, hence why I started out this call talking about the gold, collateral. They can now recognize gold as a Class A asset, which can now officially be recognized as collateral, physical collateral on their balance sheet. And most people assume that's physical gold. No, if their currency is gold backed to a certain percentage, that means that when the bank has the currency, they also have gold, which is an asset, because a certain percentage of every $1 is going to be worth an exact amount of gold in weight and ounces. And so this is all part of the subtle and non-invasive or calamity or chaos way of introducing a total shift in the global economy to moving currencies and banking systems to asset-backed currencies. So it'll come out subtly, and most people won't even know it. We're already, if the private transactions begin in earnest this week, that is the actual beginning of the United States moving to a gold standard once again. And nobody will know about it. Nobody will know about it. Not publicly. Not for a while.
What would your best opinion be, Shawn? Are you thinking like a month or 3 months or 6 months when we will actually see the USN?
They will never come out and say it's a USN. All right.
Well, it's going to be obvious, though, won't it? I mean, if it's rainbow currency, it's going to look pretty different than anything you've ever seen.
You're talking about a printed note. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, the first thing to understand is the majority or the bulk of the GCR or the gold backing or the return to a gold-backed system will all happen digitally, and it will happen invisibly. All right. It'll just coexist. It's just these collateralized dollars will just start to take place, and they will be in the banking system. And the start of that is the exchange of our currencies as the instrument of that shift and that change. And then, but eventually, you're right. Soon they're going to have to start implementing the phase where the gold-backed currency is now recognized as a printed note, all right, whether it's rainbow or whatever, right? And rainbow, it just means there's different colors in it than there is now. Look at the $100 bill. That's kind of a representation already of what it's going to be, right? As a matter of fact, certain information I have is that $100 bill from a couple of years ago is already the main instrument of the gold-backed printed note, right? It'll just happen. We're not going to have two different currencies. There won't be a USN and a USD, right, sitting out there. It's going to happen transparently. It's like I always say, when Nixon announced that we're off the gold standard in 1971, did they issue a new currency all of a sudden, like the one that was gold-backed before, and now Nixon made his announcement, and now there's a new currency that reflects that? No. Nobody's bank account changed. The notes didn't change. Nothing changed. It all happened behind the scenes, and it's all accounting. It's just accounting, right? The way you classify it, categorize it, and how you account for it. So that's the same way we're going to go back to a gold standard. But eventually, the big change will be when they start making this more and more public. Yes, they will say that the notes, the printed notes of the U.S. dollar will change, and it will say U.S. Treasury note or Treasury note, just Treasury note at the top instead of Federal Reserve note. It'll say Treasury note, and they're going to have to announce that. But you and I know, if we really look at this realistically, in spite of all the rumors that you read about and all of this stuff, we're not going to wake up tomorrow and all of a sudden ATM machines are going to be spitting out new notes that nobody's ever seen before, because just take this practically through. All right, so they start, they've never changed a dollar note or any country's note without large amounts of pre-announcements, right? Because everybody has to know that there's a new note coming. If all of a sudden you wake up and there's these new notes floating around, what's the first thing? You're going to walk into a Walgreens to buy something, and you're going to hand them this colorful note, and what's the first thing the cashier's going to, they're going to look at it and go, what the heck is this? I don't know what this is. So, all these rumors and everyone telling you tomorrow the ATMs are going to start spitting out rainbow notes, and it's impossible. It's absolutely impossible, right? Nobody will know that that's even real money unless there's 1 year or at least 6 months of preparation telling the public that there's going to be these new dollars. Otherwise, you're going to walk in and people are going to say, I'm sorry, I don't even know what this is. Did you print this on your home inkjet printer? That kind of thing. So, it'll be a digital transition. It'll be very subtle. And the only way, the only time that it'll get real for people is when they announce that, in 6 months we're going to release a series of new notes, and it's got Treasury note written on it instead of Federal Reserve, and it might have different colors and that kind of thing. But any of these rumors that there's two different dollars and one is less value than the other, and we're all of a sudden going to wake up with a new dollar that no one's ever seen before, it just makes no sense in any stretch of any imagination that could ever work in an economy like that. Nobody would accept it. It's like, what is this? It looks monopoly.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yep.
Well, one final question, and then I'll get off the line. I was just wondering, I think it came out yesterday in Dinar Land that they were saying there had to be an official announcement from Newton or Ryan or somebody that we are going gold back for the GCR to proceed. Do you buy into any of that?
Nope. No, I don't. I don't buy into any of this whole new republic and, there's going to be these shocking announcements. And I'm not calling anybody that does believe in that, I'm not criticizing. It's just I'm a very practical person, and and a lot of the
that's
things
what
that
we
I
like
know,
about you.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. You're not going to have a general Joint Chiefs of Staff stand up and say, I'm now the new interim president, because the entire country, every militia that's got a gun is going to be out of the streets within 2 hours, right? So, and calling it a military coup and all of that. But the same thing goes with whether it's new notes and these big announcements or 100,000 arrests overnight. It just, if I were planning this, and I know a little bit about this, it's just that maybe some people want it to happen that way, but it's not going to happen that way, because it would throw the largest economy and the largest military power on the planet into total chaos, right? And nobody who would be planning a benevolent humanitarian shift, which is what the GCR is part of, would say, yeah, that's the way we'll do it. That makes sense. Let's just throw the largest economy and military power on the planet into total civil chaos and, let's hope for the best. I mean, I'm just that practical, right? No, it'll be a subtle, slow change, and quite frankly, all of us will exchange over the course of the process, and none of us are going to talk about it, right? And we'll let the public side play out as it will play out over a subtle, transition. But the rest of us, we know, like I always said, we're insiders in this whole process. And we became insiders when we purchased these currencies. But we have the responsibility of being a part of that, just like everybody else does. And we're going to need to recognize that, we're a part of it, and we just can't run out there and create, public chaos by going, oh, looky what I did. I bought dinar and Zim, and I became a billionaire. There's a reason for the NDA, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you.
Great question.
God bless you all.
Thank you.
God bless you too.
949. First name, please.
You can call me Pip. Hello. Calling from the public call. I haven't called in before.
Okay. Can you speak up a little bit? It's very hard to hear you.
Okay. Let me switch from my headset a little bit.
Okay.
Hello.
Much better. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So you spoke earlier or in the beginning about the gold and the how about I believe you said 90% was not on the books as excavated gold supply.
Yep.
So when this and I'm assuming it's going to happen gradually, gold will come into maybe not circulation, but as backing of this currency or the digital currency or quote unquote line of credit.
Collateral.
Do you have an opinion of if that's going to affect the? I mean, there's the London and Shanghai gold markets now. Will that affect the price of gold in itself dramatically? I mean, either way, up or down.
Okay, there's two scenarios that could play out. All right, the first scenario is for whatever reason, which is, I'll just say this, it's the very unlikely scenario. For whatever reason, let's say the rest of the world decides to start, tangibly implementing and shifting to a gold-backed system, but the United States says, I'm not going to do that. We're not going to do it. So in that scenario, the dollar would begin to depreciate rapidly, right? Because it's fiat, right?
Yep.
And that type of thing, which means in dollar terms, the price of gold is going to go way up.
Right.
Right? Okay? That's an unlikely scenario because, again, as I just was saying on the last caller, they're just not going to allow that kind of chaos to happen because whether you agree with the United States or not, or whether you like what it is or what it does politically or any other way is irrelevant. The bottom line is the fact is it's the biggest economy on the planet and it's the strongest military force on the planet, and you just don't want to set chaos in that kind of scenario, right? So
I agree.
Yeah, that lets the bad guys take advantage of that, and nobody's going to allow that. So that's the one scenario. The other scenario would be the U.S. dollar, which is the most ubiquitous currency on the planet. You can, I've been to 48 countries around the world myself, but out of 200 countries, I don't think there's a place on earth you can go where they won't take a dollar, right? I mean, it is accepted everywhere. It's like whatever they used to say, MasterCard accepted everywhere, right? So the U.S. dollar will adopt the gold backing system along with everyone else. And what that means in that scenario, either gold will float to a fixed value for a period of time, because if you do any historical research on what it was like when the dollar was gold backed and the British pound
used to be $35 to the gold or something like that.
It was fixed at $35. Yep. Now there was a market price of gold based on supply and demand, but in terms of economics, the dollar was fixed at $35 per ounce, right? And then it was adjusted every year or quarter or whatever. That's going to be the scenario we're on as well. But remember, back in 1935, 1940, or whatever, the global economic system wasn't interconnected as it is today with computer systems and all of that, right? So in today's scenario, you just can't have one country going gold back and saying, we determine that gold is worth, $1 of gold in gold terms is, $22 or whatever. It's got to be managed globally, and that's where we previously were talking about what the role of the IMF is. There's got to be something that manages the value of every country's currency based on a fixed unit of gold, right? So the IMF will be involved in that, and the BIS. So I believe that under the scenario that will likely happen, the U.S. is adopting, well, I think as of last Thursday, we're pretty well adopted the gold standard, and that's being allowed. The dollar is being collateralized as we speak. Well, it's Sunday, so let's wait till tomorrow. And so I think gold will float. They're not going to just all of a sudden change it from $1,200 or $1,100 an ounce and then say it's now $400 an ounce or $300 an ounce or it's $800. It'll float to a certain value over time. So my bottom line is, if you're thinking about investing in gold and holding physical gold as an investment, that's probably not a good idea based on the uncertainty of which way this is going to go in the future. But if you just want to hold gold as a safety net of tangible value that will never go away, then that's a good play, right? But don't invest in gold to try to make money. Just, if you want to have it as a security blanket, but not as something that's going to increase in value necessarily, because we don't know. It's very uncertain right now.
Right, and I agree. I mean, even though the price, the dollar per ounce of gold changes, the purchase power ought to, let's say that the dollar goes down to, say, 400, 500. The purchase power of the dollar ought to increase based on that. Exactly.
And this is where most people get it backwards. It's not the value of gold that changes. It's the value of any given currency against gold that changes, right? So, gold is a constant. Gold is a constant. Yep.
And this might be also speculation on your part. I don't know if you have any knowledge on this that you can speak to, but I mean, traditionally silver has had a ratio of, I think it's 1 to 15 or something to the gold. So that might or ought to adjust unless there's some other factor that says, silver is going to be even more attractive as a commodity for new inventions or better catalytic converters.
I think silver is going to appreciate under any scenario, right?
I agree.
So, and again, I'm not a financial advisor. We don't take anything I say as a decision point. But yeah, I mean, silver is both a monetary instrument and it's a very, it's an industrial instrument as well.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And you just, silver like gold, you can't make it. It's not created by the earth, right? Gold and silver are created by other things. Silver is a little bit different. Gold is created by supernovas and that kind of thing. But silver is still in short supply, and it is artificially depressed from where it should be right now by any standard, right? It's manipulated Totally.
I agree. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
I had one more question. I hear a lot of speculation on the zeros of the ZIM being removed or not. Do you have an opinion on that as well?
All I can tell you is that at certain levels there are no zeros taken off, and at what it will be. Okay, so let's just understand it for what it is. It's really not zeros being taken off. It's just a multiplier for the rate, right? So it's easy to explain it by saying you take 6 zeros off, but what you're really saying is you're dividing it by 1 million, right? So at certain exchange programs or channels, the rate is going to be far lower, by 1 million, which means you're taking 6 zeros off. At other levels, again, all connected exclusively to projects, and that's what I was talking about earlier, there are no zeros taken off. It's at face value.
Thank you, caller. Six 626.
Hey, I thought you were wrapping up this thing a little bit ago when I hit the *6. Just wanted to say it's your old pizza and beer buddy, and I'm using somebody else's phone. But great job, man. Well delivered. I got no questions, as you probably know. But
well, thank you for joining.
Oh man, yeah, great job as usual. I'll catch up with you later on. Let somebody else ask a question.
Thank you.
You're doing the answer thing pretty well. Okay.
All right.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
775.
Yes. So if we're my question is, we're in a group or a couple groups, have some currency in, have lots of paperwork in. What do we do next? What's the next thing for us? And I have a sub question to that. If we need something like a real business plan. I didn't submit one because I didn't put quantity. The plan, none of the paperwork I saw of other people had quantities put in, mainly because we figured, well, we'll find out how much money we have to work with later. The business plan a real one doesn't happen overnight. So what's next for us?
Okay, so let me ask you this. Two questions to help me answer your question. One is, it depends on the currency that you're talking about, and two, it depends on the nature of the group that you're in, because if you're in a group, when you say what's our next step, when you say our, is that the collective our in terms of the GCR, or is it our as a group member, right? I need clarification on that.
As an individual or a group member, yeah.
Okay. All right. Which currency are you talking about?
ZIM and dinar.
Okay. As far as groups are concerned, ZIM is one thing and dinar is another. Okay? They have different terms and different agreements, and then even within those two currencies, depending on what kind of group you're in and where they're connected and who they're dealing with, you can have different scenario, different terms and conditions as well, and that is primarily set between whoever the group leader is and who he's dealing with or she's dealing with, right? So, in the case of a group, if you have not been asked to do a project, outline a project, or at least fill out some kind of a summary of your project, then they're really not connected, close to the source, as I was talking about earlier. Because, and especially if it's ZIM. If it's ZIM related and you haven't been asked for a project to outline your project, okay, then you're at a different level, all right? So dinar, that's on and off. I really can't say much about that. But the dinar is almost treated like a flat-out asset trade, and there's not really a lot of project involvement with the dinar. and I don't know why, but the Zim definitely is. So unless you're being asked by your group leader to do something, the answer is there's no other step you can take as a member, right? So the other thing is if your group leader is not communicating with you and telling you what's going on, if the only answer is we'll see when we see or whatever, then they're somewhere down the chain, all right, farther away from the source, as I would put it. All right, so does that answer your question? Or
okay, more specifically, there's a big difference between a project statement and a business plan. And
yeah, sure there is. Yep.
One of the biggest differences is quantifying everything. So if we already submitted a project statement, are we going to want to hustle to because it takes some time to make a more formal business plan?
No, that's been accommodated for within the chain of the process, right? So normally you're only asked for a summary because, if you really think about it, people think there's big mysteries in this and all those complications. I mean, there's a lot of work involved, but it's straightforward stuff. Just think of it in terms of sheer paperwork. If you have a group with 500 people in it and everybody was asked to submit a business plan, who is going to be around to review 500 business plans that could be 20 to 100 pages long, right? I mean, it's just called human. It's a human factor. It's like there's just not enough people to look at all that. So the real request has always been a summary, being like a page or a page minimum, maybe 2 pages, and that kind of thing. So here again, I always recommend that anybody who's involved in a group, you should always be working on providing details on a day-to-day basis or week-to-week basis to your plan, to your project. Just, ideas come up and, I didn't think about the marketing side, or I just thought about this on the budget side and how many people I would employ or how many people I would help and be it doing this. You should always be working on that and adding to it, because I follow the adage, it's better to have something that you don't need than to need something that you don't have when the time comes, right? So it's always a good idea to keep refining your project ideas and adding more detail to it in an organized manner as you come. But you don't, it's not like high school where the teacher says, all right, I want you all to do a book report, and it's got to be, 2,000 words minimum. There's no requirement like that, like your business plan has to be 20 pages, right? I mean, some business plans can be 5 pages, others can be 105 pages, right? So it depends on the project. But you should always be adding details to it, even if you haven't been asked to, because you want to have it in case you need it. And but if you haven't been asked for that, don't read into that too much, because it's literally just, it's a function of resource and how many pages people can read from thousands and thousands of people, right? So.
Thank you so much for your questions. 306.
Hello, guys. Dale here.
Hi, Dale.
Hey, Dale.
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to ask a question about what do you think of the health of the stock market? Do you think it's got any play in this GCR?
Well, the market is more of it's a reflection of the state of an economy or the state of the business community at large, right? So every individual company in the stock market, their health determines the value of their stock and the price-to-earnings ratio and all of those other things. And then as a collective, you look at it as an index, right, like the S&P 500 or the Russell 2000 or the Dow Jones. or whatever. But it's still the overall market is a reflection of what the reality is in the business world and the economic world. So yes, the market will be definitely affected by the GCR as it progresses, but that's the reason why I continue to claim that the GCR on a public level will be a very gradual and subtle shift, as opposed to a shocking, a shock to the system, like announcing all of a sudden every currency is gold backed and now certain currencies are 100,000 times higher than they were yesterday. That's just not going to happen. All right. So, the market will be affected, but it's going to be affected in a positive way, because as the graduality of the GCR is implemented publicly and institutionally, right? Whether it's banks or whether it's companies and then national, economics and that type of thing. I only see the stock market as getting more solid, because there will be real things going on, and based on all the things that are related to these economic, the key word here being economic development projects. I mean, there's a reason our current president is talking about this will be the biggest boom in infrastructure development in the history of the United States, because he knows what's happening and what's coming and how it's going to happen. So I would say it's only good news. I mean, but I'm certainly not. Yeah, I'm definitely not in any camp that says the stock market is going to collapse or we're going to go through a doomsday scenario or an apocalyptic event. The key thing being is what will affect the market for a little bit better or a lot better, and one can't argue that the market has been doing very good over the last 3 months. The key thing will be is how the U.S. finally plays into the gold backing system and the GCR system and brings it about. That goes back to, again, if the other key nations of the world, you look at the top 5 currencies, all right, decide to go gold back and the U.S. says, no, we're not going to participate, that's obviously going to be bad for U.S. stock markets, and it's going to be reflected. There'll be inflation, there'll be all kinds of things like that. But I don't subscribe to that being the way it's going to work. I think they will hold off the GCR, which they have, all right, because the U.S. has to be a part of it. It really does. It's the largest economy on the planet and the most ubiquitous currency on the planet. And by that, it has to be a part of it, right? So the rest of it doesn't make sense. Does that answer your question? Hello? I think we lost him.
All right. Next caller, 916. Your first name, please.
Oh, this is Larry Parker. I'm coming in really late. I don't even know who I'm talking with here, but I guess I didn't get here till after 7. We had some guests for dinner, and I'm out here on the West Coast, and so I missed the first.
You can listen to the replay. This is recorded. You'll be able to replay it.
That was my question. And who are you?
Shawn.
I'm Shawn.
You're Shawn. Okay, and you're with the trust situation, or
no?
I'm just a guy.
You're just one of the guys that helping lead out here. Okay, I'll listen to the recording and catch up. Thank you so much, Shawn. I appreciate it, man.
No problem.
Okay. Last caller, 256.
Yes, this is Randy, and
hi, Randy.
Just wanted to see if you had any last-minute advice or update on advice or guidance for any of us who are not in a private group.
yeah, I have a pretty practical advice on that. Is that, well, practically speaking, there's nothing you can do other than to continue to hold on, hold out, right? And 2, do not make any decisions in your personal life and financial life every day that, don't be in stasis. Don't be stuck saying, I don't want to make this decision on my personal life because the GCR, I'm going to be able to exchange this currency next week, right? You've got to keep living life as though you don't know about the GCR, right?
Oh yeah, I'm good. I'm good with that and into that. Totally, completely. Okay. I was just wondering if you had any guidance on what for us to look for as signs of potential opportunity when the time is right.
I can't give specifics, but let me just say it's going to be pretty hard for dinar land not to know when the key the first major phase of the exchange process begins, whether it's private or whatever. I'm a realist. Some things are going to leak out, and you're going to know it. The other side of, and then once you hear that part, even if it's not the general exchanges, which I don't ever talk about because I don't know if that's real until it happens, like all of you.
Right.
Right. The key thing is you do hear that there are private exchanges, or other certain things that kind of, whether they're coded or not coded or whatever, happen. You should be very happy that happens because that means the next steps are coming, right? And
right.
And like I said, one way or the other, these funds are going to get out to everybody. And I'm very fond of saying expect the unexpected. I do believe that a large amount of information that's out in the rumor mills and the internet about how the GCR is going to happen in the RV and the exchanges, it's going to be different than what you think or what you've been told, right? And
right.
But one way or the other, those funds are going to get to you. Whether you have to wait to exchange a little bit longer or not, those funds are going to hit you one way or the other if you're a part of the community and you know about it and you're watching it and you're reading about it and that kind of thing. There will be lots of opportunities for people, even if they haven't had the chance to exchange yet, to take part of these funds. And when that happens, that will go viral, and you'll be able to do a lot of different things and get assistance or do your projects. There'll be a lot of people that are going to be ready to fund your projects, even if you haven't gone to the bank yet, right? And remember, part of your projects are paying yourself and doing all these other things and securing yourself financially. So it'll all work out. Everything is going to be very, very good, in my opinion, and it's just keep yourself loose in your expectations as to, based on past information, how you think this is going to happen. Because if history has proven one thing, it's that all the rumors leading up to an actual event, no matter what that event is, they typically end up being different than what the rumors said they would be. All right? So, but it'll all be.
That sounds like good advice. So, would you be one of the names to be paying attention to when that happens, as far as funding projects with regards to not exchanging, but being in connection?
I will say absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not just me. There are hundreds of people with me. All right. So there's going to be a lot happening. Very much so. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
All righty. We have one more gladiator on the line.
All right, let's do this one. It's the last one, then I'll do my parting statements and find some dinner somewhere.
Go ahead, please.
Who's
Can
that?
you hear us?
Hello, caller.
Unmute your phone. Okay. All right. I think that's a sign.
That was the sign. I heard that whole Game of Thrones thing going on there. All right. I love it. Okay. So I will conclude this I don't live with clocks, so I don't know what time it is. But I guess I could look at my phone. All right. I'll conclude with this. Beyond all the the technocratic and the bureaucratic processes, procedures, and protocols involved with the GCR, the one thing that everyone should keep first and foremost in their minds and their hearts is that these funds are destined to change the world, and it is destined to shift us to a different place. And the main shift being that money in the hands of various factions and various people in control over the last centuries and even going back to the ancient Egyptian and Babylonian cultures 6,000 years ago. Money has always been kept. The unit of value called money or currency, whether back in the old days it was a piece of silver or a piece of gold or, whatever, when that transitioned from the bartering system to actually using precious metal as a form of representation of value, so the silver and gold has always been kept scarce. All right? So you deliberately hold back the supply of gold or the supply of silver or whatever to keep I call it the monetary slave system. Okay? So what we are experiencing now and about to go through is the total reversal of what has been in place for thousands of years, which means the bottom line is there is no economic principle that states that money has to be scarce. As a matter of fact, the very definition of a healthy economic system is that money flows freely and ubiquitously and is abundant. All right? So the real big picture here is a total shift from scarcity of money to abundance of money. So think about it. If money is not in short supply, people don't have to work at jobs that they hate. They can do what they love and get fair pay for it. And there should be plenty of money around to help their basic social systems. Nobody should ever go hungry. Nobody should ever be poor. And you should be able to have an equal opportunity to use your God-given ingenuity and your creativity, which we all have, to exchange that creativity for value, which would be money. All right? We have been artificially suppressed for a long time in keeping the money supply scarce. And there is no economic principle on the planet that says that if money is in ubiquitous supply for every need everywhere, that it doesn't work. All right? It's only the people who have controlled the money for so long that have foisted that principle onto us via all these economic, philosophies and rules and regulations and all of that. But money will become ubiquitous very soon. And if you just think about your personal situation every day, how much time of your conscious, awake time when you're not sleeping are you concerned with things related to money, whether it's, do I have enough for retirement, or I want that promotion because I need more money, or, I need to pay the mortgage, I need to buy food, I need to do this, I need to do that. We spend way too much time doing everything in our lives centered around something related to money. Imagine if money is so plentiful that those things, you only spend 5% of your waking hours thinking about anything financial related, and you're free to go on and do what you are good at doing, which is creating. Whether it's engineering, whether it's helping other people, whether it's being an artist or a musician or a technologist or production or anything like that, just doing what you love and loving what you do. That is what is set free by an abundance of money. And that is exactly what this entire GCR is about. Yes, there's a lot of economics and a lot of stuff in banking and all of those things that are thrown into this, but just keep in mind the overarching purpose and shift that is coming upon all of us. Not going to happen overnight, but we are approaching a time where people will spend 90% of their waking moments thinking about creative ways to help make the planet better and the human situation better. And that is what the primary mandate of these trusts and the World Global Settlements and the GDF, Global Debt Facility, and all of those types of things, that is what they are there for. And it will be, and it is being distributed back out to humanity. And we are living in a great time. So keep that overarching purpose in mind instead of being consumed by, when or what or how much and that type of thing. But everything is going to be taken care of in its own time and space and that type of thing. And nobody will be left behind, period. Right? One way or the other, these funds are going to touch every human on the planet. This is what I know. This is what I am led to, the facts that I have. So if you keep that main reason and philosophy and purpose in mind, it makes it a little bit easier to wait for it to unfold. And that's what it's doing right now. So I wish every one of you the best. It's been great. I've enjoyed this immensely. I hope you have too. I hope it's helped a lot of you in one way or the other. How much longer do we all have to wait? We don't really know. All right, but it is going to flow out. And in the meantime, live your life and do the things that you need to do to take care of yourself and your family, and do not set your expectations on by next Wednesday it'll be okay, or by next Friday, or next week, or the week after that. Keep yourself informed on what's going on in the GCR, but do not live your life day to day as if the GCR is your only hope for changing your life, because we can all change our life every single day by making the right decisions and deciding to make a change, period. And money has got nothing to do with that. Money is a tool, and we can all bring better lives to ourselves while we're waiting to the GCR. All right, that's it. Thank you, everybody.
Great call, Shawn.
I don't even know how to conclude this because I'm not going to do another call for a while. So it is what it is. We're getting there. It is absolutely real, and it's a fact, and it's just got to unfold. And like we've all done for years and years, some of us, and months for some of us, it is coming, and just keep on keeping on. I've loved it. Love all of you people, and we'll see you on the other side. All right? Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.
Great love to everyone. Bye-bye.